Alright, so Devil May Cry 2. The game that the fans seem to want you to forget. This was the very first Devil May Cry game I've played. This was a series that for some reason always sort of slid underneath my radar. The first time I even remember hearing about this series was when the game Dante's Inferno came out, which sort of shamelessly took a little inspiration in at least the theming of the game. I'm assuming it's probably a similar genre, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't know much about that game either. And then I don't know, I didn't know much about the franchise, and then they had that reboot that went horrible, and it finally caught my eye again when they announced the fifth game. I just, for whatever reason, caught a trailer, and I thought it seemed like it could be fun. So, by choice, I started with the second game, and there's two reasons I did that. One, I knew it's widely considered to be the worst in the franchise, at least out of the immediate main series. So I thought, it can only go up for here, and I couldn't imagine it being so bad that it would turn me off of the rest of the franchise, right? The second reason, though, is I also heard it was by far one of the easiest games in the series, and not really knowing what to expect, except sort of hearing that the series did have a reputation for being a little more difficult, I thought it sort of made sense to have this as a starting point for that as well. What's kind of weird, though, is you read stuff online, and granted, I didn't do a lot of research or anything, but I thought some of the complaints were more revolved around some of the mechanics they changed around in the second game and some of the level design and that sort of thing, which is why people don't like it as much. The difficulty, as I said, I think some people like the higher difficulty of these games. To me, though, those weren't the main issues I had with the game. So it almost has me wondering, like, should I even bother to go back to the first one? Because the issues I had, mainly, I just don't see being different in the first game. Maybe the third. I think the third launched on the next generation of consoles. I saw a couple screenshots, I think, on the Steam page, and it looked a bit cleaner. So it at least appears like they did a bit big of a overhaul, but I don't know. The main issues I had with this game, I think, came down to a few things revolving around the flow of gameplay. In this game, rolling is a big thing, at least the way I was playing. I don't think there was difficulty selection. I think if you clear the game, you can pick a harder mode, but basically you want to build up the biggest combo you can, and to keep the combo going, the best way to do that is just to keep rolling. And I found building up combos to be the most fun part of the game, but it was also one of the most frustrating, and I don't think it came down to necessarily as much of my skill level. Granted, I'm not very good at the game, but I feel like a lot of the time it came down to me rolling to a certain area and the camera moving around, or me being too close to a wall and jumping on the wall instead of rolling, and that sort of thing that would break my combos. Not necessarily me being hit. I can accept that, but when it's just sort of those sort of issues, it the flow of the game just didn't really hit right for me. A little more variety, I think, would have been nice too. I mean, this is an early game in this sort of genre, and the games I'm sort of comparing it to came later down the road, like Bayonetta, and actually, I'll be talking about Bayonetta soon, but and the other game, to a certain degree, Yakuza, Like a Dragon. And it's like in both of those, you can pick up weapons which change up the move set. There's certain specials you can execute based on the enemy or your surroundings and that sort of thing. So I feel like those types of things really help this type of game really reach its full potential. I don't necessarily fault this game for not having that stuff, given it was earlier down the road, but that those things would have been nice too. I also didn't find it as fun as I did with Bayonetta in particular, which is a game very much inspired by Devil May Cry, as I found out as playing it. But I don't know, I felt like I had a good rhythm of going back and forth between your melee attacks and your ranged attacks, sort of trying to take on the different enemies and such. And I don't know why, but it just didn't really feel as fun or rewarding here. I don't know if it comes down to losing some of that other variety I talked about, or if it's sort of another issue, but it is what it is. Another thing I didn't like at points too was like the mission I got gameplay of, or one of the missions I think I got gameplay of, was like there was a point in the level where to continue you need to press B by the elevator, but most of the other times when you go through a doorway you just walk up to it and automatically walk through. And there was also other points too where I felt like the doorway or whatever blended in a little too much with the environment. So I don't know, sometimes it just wasn't clear exactly where you should go. And I don't think it necessarily comes down more to hand holding as it did to changing things up out of nowhere and, I don't know, general aesthetic to the levels. Actually, now that I think about it, I actually wound up downloading a completed save because I thought I got soft locked on the second level where it wouldn't let me go through one of the doors, and I watched a playthrough. I did everything as close to it as I could, and it just wouldn't let me through. So I decided rather than only being able to play 2 levels of the game, that I would just play through what I could on a completed save, since you can replay levels and all of that. Now, in retrospect, perhaps I just had to press B there, but I don't know. After that, there was also a secondary story with Lucia, which I thought started stronger than it ended. She has a bit different, animations and gameplay in that, but I don't know. You're playing on the same levels, and at first, I remember one of the early ones you go through in reverse, which I thought was good. And I think later on, some of the objectives might change around a little, whether it be the objective itself or the location and that sort of thing. But I don't know. Luckily, it wasn't a super long game anyway, so I still did it. But I don't know. I wish it kept more momentum going, and it wasn't necessarily one of the better incentives to do a second playthrough, I guess, with the way it sort of churned out. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like this game would definitely benefit from some sort of remake, as with the first, probably. Because like I said, I imagine some of these issues also being present there. So I feel like I shit on the game a lot. I mean, it was fine enough, but... And I guess expectations weren't as high going in. I could see the potential there for them to really make this into something great, like some of these other games would sort of take the inspiration from and run away with. I feel like this series will eventually get there as I play through more of it. Another mild complaint I have is with the progression. Like, you get the currency in game by performing big combos, and you need that to upgrade weapons, unlock other combos. I forget. But just, stuff like that, which I kind of get, but on the same time, you need to be like, I feel it's the less skilled players who can use those upgrades, and just the way it's sort of balanced in that, at least I felt like, I don't know, I wish it was just balanced differently, like it was, like I'm thinking of Bayonetta again, where, you could have easily buttoned all the moves, but if you wanted to get everything in the game, like all the different, costumes and sort of less important things, then you really need to, grind and that sort of thing and be good. But then here I felt like it was sort of core things that sort of affected how well you were able to tackle the game, especially later on. But yeah, I'm probably not going to play another Devil May Cry game soon. It's not that this game was so bad, but I'm just sort of getting preoccupied with other games. I definitely intend to come back. I don't know what exactly I'm going to come back to, whether I decide to do. It's definitely going to be either 3, 4, or 5. So I guess we'll see when we get there.